For review in Lekutei Sichos in Chelek Chov, volume 20, the first Sicha for the Parshas Mikeitz. This is a Rashi Sicha, and the Rebbe brings down on question. Rashi says that why does the pasuk say that Yosef gave birth to the two children before the years of hunger begin, because a person is not allowed to be intimate during years of hunger. And the Rebbe brings down the questions from the Gemaras, and there's a lot of from a different Meforshim and from a lot of the different answers. How come that we find that Yocheved, who was born as they were entering into Mitzrayim, that was during the hunger years. How was Levi then permitted to be intimate and have Yocheved? And how is it you see that Yitzchak was together intimate with his wife, that Abimelech saw him misachik, and that was hunger years, and the different answers. But all these answers, the Rebbe doesn't believe that that's Rashi, because there's no hint in Rashi, and there's not at all. The Rebbe basically explains that there is two reasons. The Rebbe explains that in our pasuk, the reason is because it's a time, a shnas re'ovin, which basically it's not a time in which shnes re'ovin, 2 years of hunger, more than just a year of hunger, which represents a time in which the world is not settled. And the time the world is not settled, there's no reason to be intimate to bringing children into the world. It's not a time for that. So it's a different reason that the Rebbe explains it. And therefore, he explains many other points with it, but let's go step by step. We'll do inside. So Rashi begins, the Rebbe begins that if in Posik, on the verse, Uli Yosef Yulad Shnei Bonim Beterem Tovish Nasarov. So the Pasuk says that to Yosef there were born two sons. The name that's Menashe and Ephraim. But the Pasuk emphasized Beterem Tovish Nasarov. That was before the years of hunger came about. Zogt Rashi Bipirusha from Gemara. So Rashi in his commentary brings down from the Gemara that Mikan, from here we learn Sha'asur la'odom l'shamish mitosei b'shnei ra'ovin. It is prohibited to a person to be intimate with his wife during the years of hunger. And that's why the children that were born to them were born before the years of hunger came about. The Rebbe is going to address also later on, by the way, in order for the children to be born before the years of hunger, that means not only can you not be intimate during the Shnei Rovin, you're not allowed to even beforehand, so that the children will be born in Shnei Rovin, as we'll see later on. But basically in the Rashi it says a person is not permitted. We learn from here that it's prohibited to a person to be intimate during the years of hunger. Frekt Tosfos, so Tosfos in the Gemara asks, Yocheved is doch geboren geworden bein hachomes. The Yocheved was born in between the walls of Egypt as they were entering Egypt. When Yaakov Bonov seinen angekommen kein Mitzrayim, when Yaakov Bonov arrived in Egypt, so she was born there. Was eis rav. During that period, it was a time of hunger. There was hunger. As Levi, Avi Yocheved, how could we say that Levi, who was Yocheved's father, hat overgiven auf an Isur Chas v'sholem, that he violated, that Levi, Yecheved's father, violated a prohibition, God forbid, because here the Gemara says, Osur Odom l'shamish mitosu b'shnei Reuven, and he did, because the proof is that Yecheved was born Bein HaChomes when it was already the hunger. There's also a similar question that is asked by the Meforshim, from them was steht, Vayar goimer Yitzchok mitzachik. It says Avimelech looked through the window, Vayashkiv Avimelech, Vayar, it says Vihine Yitzchok mitzachik, Rivka is Ishtay. But Yitzchok was intimate. Shara'ohu mishamish mitosei. Abimelech saw him being intimate with Rivka. That's how he found out that she's his wife. And he complained to him later on, how come you didn't tell me? As it says there was a rob, a hunger in the land. So how come Yitzchok was mitzachik at that time? Meforshim seinen marichen them. The Meforshim prolonged this verantworten the Shailas in them. The Shailas hanal bekame yefanim. They answer it in various different ways. Umehem, the Rebbe brings down some of them. Even though it says in Rashi that the kansha osur, it doesn't really mean osur osur. It's a measure of righteousness, and if one doesn't do that, that's okay. Aleph, dos is nit kein isur mamash. It is not a actual prohibition. Nor blois amidas chasidus. This is a measure of righteousness. Und Yitzchok v'Levi seine nit given nizhar in der midas chasidus, that they were not careful. Yitzchok and Levi weren't careful in this measure of chasidus. Or another way, other as far matan Torah is thus nit given also, that actually before the Torah was given, at that point it wasn't prohibited yet. So how do we bring a proof from Yosef, from the pasuk which was before Matan Torah? The raya from Yosef is bloizan asmachta. The evidence from Yosef, it's only a leaning. We find the pasuk to lean it on, but it's not really, the issur is not based on that pasuk. It's a pasuk that we lean it on, and before Matan Torah it didn't apply. That's one answer. Base. Another answer is that it depends if you hadn't had any children yet. So then you don't have to give up the mitzvah of Peru Revu. But if you had children, maybe then the issur applies. Base. These lazainen chasuche bonim, those who are lacking, darkened from children, have no children. They had not yet fulfilled the mitzvah of being fruitful and multiply. The Yitzchok v'Levi in Yenem Azman, as Yitzchok and Levi during that time had not had any children. Oder beleil tevilo, or if it's a night of the mikveh when there's an obligation. Of legitimate is bazei nito der isur, then the isur does not apply to them, and therefore you cannot use this reason of righteousness of the isur of intimacy that doesn't apply when there is a mitzvah, when it's leil tefillah, or they don't have any children. Then they quit. I'm just wondering by Yosef. See what the Rebbe says in the Ha'aris over here. It says that Yosef, the Rebbe brings down Ha'aris 16. The Rebbe discusses about Yosef over here. But this would be another answer. How come Levi and Yitzchak were mishamish during the Shnei Reuven, because they either had no children or it's B'leil Tefillah is different. That's another answer, another exception, another answer. That Isur is nor when Yisrael Shuruyim B'tzar. The Isser is when the Yidden are in pain. The Pasuk says Shnei Oven, and Shnei Oven means that when the Yidden are in pain. Und der Faris is nicht given kin Isser by Yitzchok and Levi. And that's why by Yitzchok and Levi there's no prohibition. As Yosef, as Yaakov Ubonov, seine nicht given Shruim Bitzar, because Yaakov and his sons were not in pain, weil sie haben dann gehabt Tvur, because they did have grain at that point. And also, evidently by Yitzchak as well. Und das, was Yosef hat sich abgehalten, so they had the grain, so the Yidden were not in Tsar. They were the Yidden then. They were the Bnei Yaakov, the Yaakov Abonov. This was the Yidden, and they weren't Shrori B'Tzar. Und das, was Yaakov hat sich abgehalten. So how come Yaakov did refrain? He says, B'terem Tovish Nasarov, is weil hat nicht gewusst, because he didn't know, as they haben Tvur, that they have grain. Und hat gemeint, as is eine Shurim B'Tzar. He was under the impression that they were in pain because they don't have anything they don't have food, so that would be Shurim B'Tzar. So therefore, he didn't want to be Meshamish Yosef. That's why the Pasuk says B'Terem. But Yaakov, they knew that they had food, and they had no reason not to Shurim B'Tzar. So therefore, there was no prohibition against the Shamish Mitosa. Okay, so these are the answers given for this question. But the Rebbe says, how come Rashi doesn't even address this? This is a question which is obvious, and Rashi doesn't address it. And the Rebbe says, all these answers of the Mefarshim is not fitting according to Rashi, and there's no hint in Rashi to any of these interpretations. Based. If he says, based on this, there is a big surprise with Pirush Rashi in the commentary of Rashi. How come Rashi does not answer, does not caution us and give an explanation for the questions? How come Yitzchak and Levi were intimate during times of hunger? These are obvious questions, the Rebbe says in the brackets. Vorum the Shailis are now the above mentioned questions that from Tosfos and from the Mefarshim stellen sich euch in Limud Aderech Hapshat. Those are raised even when you're learning according to the simple meaning. And as Rashi says, when the Pasuk says Avimelech looked from his window, is Rashi mefarish mishamish mitose. Rashi explains that what he saw, that he was mishamish mitose. Und Rashi zog befedish, and Rashi says very clearly, as damult is given nit nor a ro'ov ba'aretz, not on as the pasuk says that there was vahirov ba'aretz. Rashi says nor ashnas re'oven. It was a year of hunger in the pasuk. There was a year of hunger. It wasn't just a hunger in the land, but it was a year of hunger, quoting the Rashi over there in Tildus Pasuk base. So this is very clearly that what Yitzchak did, and also that it was a hunger then. Rashi also brings down in his commentary on the Torah as that she was born in between the walls as they came into Mitzrayim. But this is given this was during the years of the hunger, when it says in Torah that the whole story, they came down to Mitzrayim to buy the food because there was a hunger, and that's why they had to go to Yosef. And the whole story, that's why they descended. And Yosef brought them down because there's no food, and he was going to support them. So all this is very clear. So how come Rashi says over here, also l'shames b'shnei ra'ov? How come they did? Now we cannot say that Rashi relies on one of the above answers that the Mefarshim gave. Warum neusef auf die verschiedenen Schwierigkeiten, was ist deinen da in jedem von die Terutzim. In addition, the Rebbe says there are various difficulties that exist in each one of these answers. The Rebbe says, I'm not going to go into at length right now. Is the Zelbe Shaili in Ze Allah? So we have one question for all the answers that's brought down on the Mefarshim. Ze Zainen Klal, Afilu Nirmas in Pirush Rashi. They are at all. They're not even hinted in Rashi's commentary. So there needs to be, if Rashi meant any of those, there should be at least a hint for it. The Geret Kama Pomim has spoken many times that Rashi Gishuribn Zain Pirush ala Torah. Rashi wrote his commentary on the Torah in Signon in such a style as Oicha ben Chumash lemikra, that also a 5-year-old learning Chumash so kennen verstehen Kavanas Rashi, should be able to understand what Rashi means. For seine gezählte Wörter, from the measured few words that Rashi says, he should understand what Rashi says. The darfen dik suchen dik keine sofas biras are not needing to search for additional explanation. Everything should be in the Rashi. It should be simple, understood to the Ben Chumash Lemikra, not to go find the Mefarshim to give us answer. From them was Rashi zogdosta. The fact that Rashi says it in a general way, on without any distinctions and only conditions. Rashi says quite clearly, it is prohibited to a person to be mishamish the mita during the years of hunger. It's evident. As Aleph, we tried to say one answer before that this is midas chasidus. No. Das is a isur kipshute. It says osur means it's a literal isur, not just a midas chasidus. Beis, the distinction, leil tvila, or you don't have children, that is permissible. That isur is for alman and untersheit. It is for everybody. There's no distinctions. For Yosef, for Matan Torah, even for Yosef, even before Matan Torah, they don't have children who believe tefillah, do not tefillah, it's still not going to help. Rashi seems to include everything and say, no, it will still be awesome. Gimel, sie ist nicht verbunden, Davke, mit dem Zar von Eden. It's not connected specifically. The third answer was because they weren't in Tsar. This isn't connected with the Tsar of Yidden specifically. Nor is not a matzah for Shnei Ra'avin Ba'olam is as osur. If it's a condition that it's years of hunger in the world, that is osur. Also the Shamish Mitosi B'Shnei Ra'avin. This whole addition that it's only if the Yidden are in pain, and since the Bnei Yisrael, the Shvatim, they had food to eat, that's not mentioned in Rashi, and that will not be an exception. Basically, according to Rashi, all these answers don't work. So why is it that they were allowed? How come they were allowed when Rashi says clearly that this is also? Nochat mi and Pirush Rashi said, there's another surprising in this Rashi, that Rashi says, from here we know, when you say from here we know that you're not allowed to. So usually that means we understand from that is that here as opposed to somewhere else. And there's actually another source. It says by when they went into the Teva, they were prohibited to mishamish mitosom because the world is in pain. Rashi says that also. And here Rashi seems to emphasize mikan is from here. Why from here and not from there? Let's look inside. Nochat mi and Pirush Rashi said. Rashi zog mikan, from here we see she'osur la'odom, it's prohibited to a person. As there is learned and up from them posik, the prohibition we learn from this verse. Why does Rashi emphasize from them? From Rashi's emphasis, mikan, from here, is move on. It's understood as Rashi will shelel sein at Zweitnord. Rashi is coming to negate another place from Vanen Volt Lechere gekent Oblernen den Isur, from which it seems that we should have be able to learn this prohibition. But Rashi says no mikan. As the limit is mikan dafke, that we learn it from here. Gefit mataki in Yerushalmi and Medrash, so we take find another place in the brought down in Yerushalmi and Medrash. As Suzam and mitn limud anal from Yosef, together with bringing this, learning this out from Yosef about Beterem Tovish Nasarov, that also l'shamish mitose wird gebracht during Shnei Rov and wird gebracht der Posuk wo steht bei Noach. It's brought down the verse that it says by Noach. There the Posuk says Vosa ela teva. You shall come to the teva. Noach should come to the teva. Ato you Noach, ubanecha and your sons. Then vi ishtecha your wife, uneshebanecha your son's wife. Itoch with you. Since we separated, we didn't say ato vi ishtecha, but ato vanecha, then vi ishtecha uneshebanecha. Top aspect, and when they entered into the teva, tashmish hamita was prohibited to them. So, but this is l'chaira. There's albert isur v'bishnei ra'avin. It seems to be the same kind of prohibition that which is in the years of hunger, as in Azman was the Welt is shori b'tzar, that during a time that the world is in pain, the person finds itself in a painful situation, is when also b'tashmish hamita, you're prohibited in tash hamita during that period of time when the world is b'tzar. So why is Rashi negating this interpretation? Is Tamua b'Yosef. Rashi atzme in sein Pirush ala Torah. Rashi himself in his commentary in the Torah zokt. As Noach is given also l'shamish mitose b'knisose l'teva, that Noach was prohibited to be mishamish the mita as he entered into the teva. Because the world is resting, finds itself in pain. So that's the reason why the Eibishter said to Noach that it's also l'shamish mitose. Hein vizok Rashi mekan she'asur. So Rabbi says, well, here, no, it's not from there, it's here. As those learned is dafke mekan, that you learn it specifically from here. B'shas as mekendos uplearning from posuk frier banoichem. We have the ability, we can learn it from the previous posuk. Why does Rashi say mekan? And the Rebbe is going to say that these are actually two different prohibitions. The prohibition by Noach and the prohibition over here. Rashi emphasizes mikan, that it is not the same thing as over there. Over there, when it says the oilam is shori b'tzar, that's the osur by the teva, is different than when we talk about the shnei oven. Dalet, der bir bazeh, the explanation of this. This is actually what tells us the distinction that these are two separate things. The story, the prohibition of Noach, and this that we learn from Yosef. Rashi says mikan, so we learn that this is a different thing. That this is mikan is here. The Rashi adds to the language of the Gemara from here. Macht Rashi klor, so Rashi makes it clear. Ados is al derech hapshat, that according to the path, the way we learn it, simple meaning, nit der zelbet isru b'Noach. This is not the same prohibition that we find by Noach. Vado is klal nitoya nertam ha'olam shori b'tzar. Here, there is not at all the reason that the world is in pain. That's the reason olam shori b'tzar is the reason by Noach. Over here, b'shnei re'ovin, It's not, Mikan is Mishnei Rav and nothing to do, not because of Tzad. The Rebbe was going to explain that over there, the whole world was in pain. It wasn't talking about a certain amount of people, because there was no people there to be in pain. Those who were drowned, they weren't in pain. They weren't around anymore. And those that were living in the teva, that's the ones that you're prohibiting. So we have to learn. We don't know that when some people are in pain, the other people shouldn't be having enjoyment at the same time. Let's look inside. Ha'olam sharui b'tzar. What does it mean, the world? By Noach, the world is in pain. By Mabul, when it comes to the flood. Meint the Welt b'chlal. We're talking about the situation in the world. V'adrabeh. We're not talking about, there's no people, there are no animals. Nit mention, chayis v'chulu, not people are in pain, not animals are in pain. You can't say that they were in pain, the animals, the people. They were not existing anymore. He erased all the everything in the world was erased, so they weren't in tzar. So if we're going to say the world is bitzar, meaning the people that are alive, the people that are in the teva, or the animals that are in the teva, that we're talking about, those of the world, that are in the teva, they're in pain. Was there sein dort is an bitzar, meaning to have to be in a confined to the teva, that's a level of tzar. So that means they're all bitzar. Here we're saying when the world is bitzar, then the other one should not do tashmish hamita. But in that case, so they're also in pain. So here we're trying to say that you're also l'shamish mitosi when somebody else is in pain. But here, there's nobody else here in pain but those who are in the teva, which Noach is part of them. Not as what we're learning, the prohibition, as Atzol, Rav mentioned, whether a certain number or maybe the majority of people, Zayin and Bitzar, are in pain, is andere dafen sich euch bestatter sein in sehr tzar. So others need to participate in their pain by not doing tashmish. So this couldn't mean over here, the oilam, this is not others, there's no others, it's just either Noach and those who are on the teva, so that's not, they're the one that are in pain. If it's the world, there's no world over there, so who's the others? Von them nicht oplernen, as by Shnei Oven is do an Isur if divas leiden nicht von kein Rov. So you can't learn from this that when there's a hunger, the people, there's an Isur, those who don't suffer from the Rov. So Meila, we're saying Noach, Shori Bitzar, so he can't Lagabi him shouldn't be Mishamish Mitosi then. But you can't learn that the people that are nitful kinderov, you've been done by Yosef, was he not felt tvua. He was not missing tvua. So Yosef would not be prohibited. Beterem tovoi, we can't learn it from what took place by Noach, because over there Noach himself was in pain. So when you're in pain, then there's an issur. But how would Yosef know from that while the world is in pain by him, that he should stop when he doesn't have any pain. We only know if you are the one that's in pain, like Noach, who was in pain, he was confined to the teva. So the Eibishter said, when the world is in pain, which would mean those who are in the teva, that they in the teva, since they're in pain, there should be no enjoyment. They have to participate with everybody else's pain. But that wouldn't be obligating Yosef. So why is Take Yosef prohibited? So why is Yosef prohibited? Why is B'terem Tovoi? So the Rebbe explains that this is a different prohibition, not that same prohibition that is over there. By us, the prohibition is because there was a years of hunger, and there was years of hunger, 2 years of hunger. That represents that the world is not in its normally functioning way, and therefore the propagation of the world with children does not apply then too. Let's see inside. By first bringing out, introducing the specific language that Rashi says, Rashi uses the plural. A person is prohibited to be meshamish mitosei during the years of hunger. Now, the Lecheira, why is Rashi say years? Now, this is the language of the Gemara, but Rashi doesn't have to quote the Gemara. Exactly. Let it be true that this is actually the language the Gemara uses, Shnei Ra'ovin. But Rashi is doch the oisu to uptaichen, but Rashi is coming here to translate the posik. He's teaching with the posik, the terem tovoi, what the posik is saying before the year of hunger. And Rashi, as I feel in it, mitzayin as the pirush is from Gemara. Rashi doesn't even reference that he comes from the Gemara. So he should not have changed from the pasuk nor zogen asur chulu b'shnas harav. It's a pasuk for a person to be mishamish mitzvah b'shnas harav, b'shnas, a singular. With the lashon pasuk v'achal that is mefarish, because this is the language of the pasuk that Rashi is explaining. B'terem tov b'shnas harav. We're talking about a singular year, shnas harav. What's the difference between a shnasarov, shneisarov, 1 year, 2 years? So you hunger, what difference does it make? So the Rebbe says, "Befratas is da chilik bepashtas." Very simply, there's a difference. Shnas harov meant as dem yor is da harov. A year of hunger means that this year it's a unique situation. There's a hunger there. Mashenki shnei ra'ovin l'sharabim, when it comes to a plural, vice that points that this is a condition that stretches for some time. There's years. There's 2 years already of this year. The Rebbe brings down it's more than just the quantity of time, 1 year, 2 years. Whether the hunger lasts for 1 year or the matter or more. We can say it also makes a difference in the quantity, the quality, what kind of not just how many years, but the quality of the hunger. When something happens just once a year, it's possible. It's just a passing, something that happens. Passing, it's happened like that. As opposed to when it is repeated several times. And we say this is years of hunger, plural. Is as atkufa funrov. That is a period of hunger. Nit, it's a period, it's a season, it's a time of hunger. Nitkin Tzufelik Inyan. It's not a something just happened. But Adover Shal Chazoka, this is something which is established that these are hunger years. And Alderech Rashi Ochein Mefarish Given. Similar Rashi had already explained, meaning emphasized. This is Rashi himself has said it, and it said it in the past. As Yehudot made a Gahat, Yehuda was afraid to give Shelah his Tomer as a wife because he was afraid Penyamas Gamhu Shelah Keachov, that maybe also he will die, that this Shelah will die just like his brother did. This woman has been established that her husband's died. It happened twice already. So, therefore, we see that happening something twice has been causes an established already a warrior. So, therefore, 2 hunger years make up already a period. Well, that is not similar as in our case. If it's only a year of hunger, and your is a chidush, that's something a novel. As what did it did not grow any grain. Is so what we only have is this novelty. Sadover aray umechudesh l'shayte. This is a temporary, something new just for the period that it's in. There are 2 feligisibas from them year that just to so happened reasons from that year for certain greating event that caused that the tvu is only dvaxon that the grain should not grow. Over b'shazdos is shneir oven. Those are years of hunger. Is thus a bavais of a hemshach. That points to a continuation. Against kufa, it's a season, it's a period. Ahan hogem yuchedes is a special conduct. The Rebishter brings at kufa von rov ba'olam. The Hashem brings a period of hunger in the world. Und das ist der Tam b'pshutei shel mikra. This is the reason in the simple meaning of the pasuk from them isur l'shamesh mitose b'shnei oven. What is the isur, the prohibition, to be mishamesh mitose during the years of hunger? Far dem welcher is nidberov, for the person who's not in hunger. He's not in pain. Why should he not be mishamesh mitose? Mele by Noach over there, they were the ones that were suffering. They were bitzar, but why should somebody who's not bitzar not be mishamish mitose? Well, in azman fushnei oven, because in a time when there is years of hunger, it's a season of hunger. When the anhogam el mailo, when the contact from above is nitin an oifim from kol yimei haaretz. It's not the normal way, the way the world runs. As the pasuk promised that as long as there is the days on the earth, there will be sowing and cutting. The seasons will never cease. And there will be grain. It's become contrary, opposite of settling in the world. And there is no room to occupy oneself into being fruitful and multiplying and filling the world. Yeshuva shalaylam. There's no real reason to be involved in the settlement of the world, and that's why during that period, if it's a period of hunger, even if this person has what to eat himself personally, but in the world it's a season, it's a period like that. So then a person, the whole idea of occupying yourself and making fruitful and to propagating the land and the world, that's not the time. So therefore, in cases like by Levi and by Yitzchak, we'll say over there it wasn't years of hunger. It was just a one occasion or the beginning. They didn't know. So therefore, there was no reason, the Pshuta Shel Mikra, for them to abstain from Tashmish Shemitah. That's why Rashi doesn't bring that down. That's why Rashi is not worried about that. No. About as there is mitzadem was es is a matzah von shneirov, and since the prohibition is because it's a condition, it's a situation where there's years of hunger, achazoke. It's an established was beweist of an hogem yuchedes that points to a special conduct is verstandig, so it's understood as kol's man is nitokin chazoko is nitoder isur. So when as long as there isn't the chazoko yet, there is no prohibition. Ba'adrab. If there's no prohibition, the person has to fulfill the mitzvah pururevu. Since there is a command to be fruitful and to multiply, is kol's manes is nit borur. As long as it is not clear, as is a matzav from shnei oven that it's a condition which is hunger years, is al derech hapshat movement. So it's when we learn the simple style of learning, it's understood as mentor sich nit meinea sein from period. You're not allowed to prevent yourself from period because there is no change in the world. And as long as you don't know, you're not allowed to prevent yourself. Asur mevatel zayin mitzvahs esse, it is a prohibition to negate, to take away mitzvahs esse, in also yigra, which is a mitzvahs esse, to libasofik as efsher zayin adosh neid oven, because of a doubt, maybe this is a shnei oven, you're not allowed to. So based on this, it's automatically answered. The Shaila Hanal for Yitzchok and Levi, the question that we asked above about Yitzchok and Levi. By Yitzchok is given Kediuk Loshan Rashi by Yitzchok, as Rashi says, nor Ashnas Roven, not Shnei, but Ashnas, 1 year, nit Shnei Roven, not 2 years. By Levi, it was given by Onheb, Gimel Chadoshim for Tzveit year. This was in the beginning of the 3 months from the second year from the Rov. So it wasn't established yet 2 years. Warum Yocheved is geboren geworden beim Zeug von 2. Jahr von Rov. She was born 9 months later, which is at the end of the second year of the hunger, when they came to Mitzrayim, because we say as soon as Yaakov came to Mitzrayim, the hunger ended and the 2 years. So they came towards the end, then when she was born. That's when Yaakov came down, the hunger finished, so it was the 2 years were up. Noch Eiders is given the Chazok of Shnei Roven. So that means when they were intimate 3 months before, a year and 3 months, and it hasn't yet had a second year, so therefore it hasn't been established yet. So it was no 2 years, it was just a year and 3 months. Mashiach Ken Yosef, so Abba Yosef doch gewusst to border, he knew and for sure, as the Rov is an anhogem yuchedes, he knew that hunger is not just happens to be, but he knew that this was a special conduct from Hashem, as is coming on Sheva Shnei Rov, that there is 7 years of hunger are approaching. With the Zelt Frier, as it related earlier, Ubarucha, and at length in their Parsha, as Yosef had pointed, when that Yosef, he resolved, he interpreted as Hashem also likim oisa, that what Hashem is doing, there will be 7 years of hunger. Hashem is making a special period. Der Vater is by him given der Isur bald von ersten Tag on. That's why his prohibition started immediately from the first day. Umekan lernt men op. From here we learn, as in jeden Fall was meveis bevados, that in every case that we know for sure, adozain and shnei of these are years of hunger, as that it became established. By him, he knew right away, that's why it's established. But by others, when you find out, because there's 2 years, shnei and is a chazaka, is also allowed in Mishamish Mitose. A person is not allowed to be Mishamish Mitose Bishnei Ra'ovin. Well, okay, so meaning Yosef, since he interpreted, he knew that the Eibishter is making a special period, so even in the beginning of that, he was not allowed to be Mishamish. But other people learn from here that when you know for sure that the hunger years are coming, then it's also L'Shamish Mitose. You're going to ask, the interpretation of Yosef must have reached everybody. So Levi should have known that. How could Levi not know? But Levi didn't matter if he knew it. He knew that they didn't know it was Yosef. They didn't know who interpreted. They didn't trust it. And again, he had a vadai of the mitzvah of Piriya Verivia, has the vadai, the mitzvah of Tashmish Amita. So therefore, to push it off because of a Shnei Oven, which he doesn't know, which interpreted, it does not stop him. I'll explain Zayin. Sicher ist schon dann Nisparsen geworden, Yosef's Pisren from Chalon Pore. For sure, at that time, it became publicized, Yosef's interpretation from Paro's dream. As well as Zayin Sheva Shnei Rov, it'll be 7 years of hunger. You saw that it started to become fulfilled in actuality. So how come Levi weren't worried about the Isser? Is that it is bepashtus? So the answer is simply, Levi had done it givus as the Pesach Acholim is Yosef. He did not know then that the one that interpreted the dream was Yosef. Adrab. Menot givus. What he did know is as this is anar. It's a lad, a youngster, an eved. He was a slave. Menot givus. As the Khartume Pare, we also knew that the necromancers of Pare, the regular advisors and wise of people of Pare, the ständige Pesach Chaloim is those who always interpreted dreams from Melech Mitzrayim. Haben das nicht gesagt, they didn't say so. Torer sich nicht verlassen von Chaloim Pare. So Levi said he's not allowed to rely on the dream of Pare. And on the interpretation of a not an Eved, and to take away the command of Hashem to be fruitful and multiply. So the mitzvah here that the Rebbe is talking about is the mitzvah of the pasuk Prurevu. Ubefrat as afile benegea acholim from Ayidin is the other klal. Even when you're talking about a dream of a yid. Rashi brought in his commentary on the Torah, there's no dream that doesn't have some wasteful matters in it, so you can't fully sein. So it's possible as I feel like klolos hacholim is emes, even if the general dream is true, is over der prat, but that detail as gain sein sheva shneirov. Shneirov is going to be 7 years of Rovin, which will mean years establishment of hunger. Maybe it's just the wasted words in it. So we don't know. So he could not be mevatel the mitzvah puravu for a suffix. And the Rebbe says, so now we'll also stand. So Rashi Dafke uses the Lashon Bishnei Robin. But the Rebbe brings down in Turin the Shulchan Aruch, it says Bishnas Robin. Because over there it's not because of the established chazok. Ches, al pizevet menoich verstehen dem diuk haloshen in Tur v'Shulchan Aruch. The specific language in the Tur and the Shulchan Aruch was a zayne meshane from loshen hashaz. They changed the language of the Gemara. They say b'shnei roven. The Gemara says unzog b'shnas roven. They say in a year of roven. The Gemara gleich far the maimer also lodum chulu. Immediately before the statement that it's prohibited to a person to be mishamish mitosu b'shnei roven bringt sich wegen dem schar. The Gemara brings the reward for namariv atzmei b'shnei roven, a person who keeps himself hungry. He fasts during the time of a hunger. He get rewarded. But das is Rashi Teidstorsten. So why is that Rashi translates? The fact that he pains himself when other Yidden are bitzar. So that comes before the statement of Asur La'adam L'Shamish Mitosei during Shnei Rovin. So before that, it says the reward for paining yourself when the Yidden are bitzar. Well, there's a glach noch dem Maimer, immediately after that statement in the Gemara, it says, Osul Odom, after the Gemara statement that a person is prohibited to be Mishamish Mitosi B'Shnei Reuven, bringt sich der Maimer, then it's brought down the statement that Bisman She Yisrael Shuruyim B'Tzar, if when the Yidden find themselves in pain and one of them separates himself from the community, from them is muchach. From this, it's evident as al derech halacha that when we learn by according to halacha is that tama is the reason for the prohibition. Nit val derech hapshat kenal. We say because there's a change in the world and therefore it's not a time for prurevu. That's not the reason. Nor what's the halachic reasoning to lidem was Yisrael shuruyim b'tzad, because Yidden are in pain. So you can't say that this prohibition is only when there's years, when it's an established of Reuven. Also in a just 1 year of Reuven, Yidden are b'tzad. So that's why the Tur and the Shulchan Aruch changed the Lashon, and instead of plural Shnei Reuven, they say Shnas Reuven. And now the Rebbe is going to answer that the issue, but Yosef, not only was he not Meshamish be Shnei Reuven, but even 9 months beforehand. It says, B'terem Tovoi, they were born before that. Test, like them Bir Hanal in Pirush Rashi. According to the above explanation of Rashi, that Oich Musbaver Nochadik in the Minyan can explain another problem that we have in this idea. In Posuk state, Posuk is Ul Yosef Yulad Shnei Bonim B'terem Tovish Nasarov, that the 2 sons were born to him before the year of hunger came. For from them was the Posuk read Wegen Leido. The fact that the Posuk talks about the birth is moving. So we understand as nit nor in the Shnei Reuven Gufa is the Isul Shamish Chulu, not only in the years of the hunger itself is there a prohibition l'shamish, not oich mites chodoshim freyer, but also 9 months beforehand. But often as the elot is only zayin in the Shnei Reuven, so that the birth should not take place in the years of hunger. But it would seem Lashon Chazal is doch l'shamish mitose b'Shnei Reuven. We're talking about not having the children b'Shnei Reuven. We're talking about l'shamish mitose in the year of hunger. Api analysis moving, but based on the above, it's understood. The bald as their tam is nit val Yisrael shloim b'tzar, since the reason is not because Yidden are in pain. Was demult hotan or zu sein abgehit nor in the Shnei Reuven Gufa, then it is really fitting that only during the time of Reuven, when people are in pain, not to have tash shamita then. When there is tsar. When du an opposite act, which is enjoyment. Nor, dem zman, according to Rashi, it's the period. But then is dominant, the conduct, which is opposite of settling the world. Der Far is nit masim as in dem zman soll geboren werden Kinder. That's why it's not fitting that during that period the Jewish children should be born Yeshuva Shalom Bepoil, having the world settle in actuality. So how come we say it by everybody? Everybody we don't know beforehand. Oh, Yosef knew beforehand. Aber das ist nur scheich bei Yosef und was hat gewusst vor uns Bor. He knew ahead of time clearly as es kommen on Shnei Reuven that there's hunger is coming. So he needed to have stop so that the children wouldn't be born in the Shnei Reuven. In the limud mikan for almen, but when we learn mikan from here, so mavatel zayin the mitzvahs fun einosei lesigra, to take away the mitzvah from her einos lesigra. The Rebbe brings both piriveriva and einos lesigra from piriveriva, which is together piriveriva, but ze zayin and it shaykh so wissen boren ado zayin Shnei Reuven. They're not applied. They can't know for sure that these Shnei Reuven. is bazei that isur nor l'shamesh mitosei b'shnei oven. It's only by them to be mishamesh the mitzvah during the shnei oven when there is an established chazaka. Yud. Here we see the Rashi's commentary on the Torah was loibosi elo lipshutei, that is coming really just to explain the pshat is verbunden mit jener shel Torah. It is tied to the wine of Torah, which is Chelek hasoid sheb'Torah, the section, the portion of the secret of Torah. Already spoken in the past at length, as kishem v'in the daled oilamis, just as in the four worlds that we talk in the Ishtalshlus, is oilam ha'atzilus shaykh to oilam ha'asiyah davke. The world of Atziyah is related and connected to the world of Asiyah, specifically. Azoi is oich der chelik hasoid shebetoira, was connected oilam ha'atzilus. So also the portion of the secret of Torah, which is corresponds to the world of Atzilus, verbunden davke mit chelik hapshat oilam ha'asiyah, that is connects to the part of the pshat of El Masiyah, meaning the interpretation of the Zohar, of the Kabbalah, the Soid, is connected with the interpretation of Rashi, which is the Asiyah, the Pshuta Shel Mikra. In Zohar von Heintige Sedra is Mavur. In the Zohar of today's Sedra, it's explained as Yimei Harav Zainen Yimei Hara. The days of hunger are the days of bad. And the father is Yosef. And therefore, Yosef Sosim Mabuay Bishnas Harav, he closed his flow during the years of hunger. While the Kinder was werden geboren von them was Eftach Mabub as Huzmano. Children that are born from those who open up their flow, they have children during that time. Werden angerufen Bonim Zorim, they're called strange children. Und der noch Firtois de Zohar. And the Zohar concludes later on, as Yosef had mavonet nachmer, that Yosef even cautioned, went further. The loimiha benin lisitra misava. He did not give children to the side of the seal, of the disgusting side, to the klippus. But thus mainly the tate is mavayid in zayna oris of Zohar. That means, as my father explains in his notes in the Zohar, he also cautioned not only that the mabua shouldn't be there, but that the children should not be in the year of the hunger. Even though that these children come from the seeds that come before the year totally, he's still if their birth would be in the year of the hunger, at least it would still be there, still born in a repugnant place during the Meirah. But this fits with the above explanation of Rashi, as their tam is that the reason is nit val Yisrael is shroim betzara, not because you're in pain, is why you shouldn't, why the Shnei Oven is different, nor mitzadem zman. It's a time, was there is a matzev, an hoge, for Shnei Oven. It's a situation, it's a condition, it's a conduct of Shnei Oven. Ukenal ba'arucha, as earlier at length explained. Here we see again the niflois in Pirush Rashi ala Torah, the wonder in Rashi's commentary on the Torah. As b'shas men learn Pirush Rashi, that when you learn, you study Rashi's commentary, midar hanoche, with the acceptance, as is geschrieben geworden, euch for ben Chumash lemikra, that it was written also for a 5-year-old who learns Chumash. B'meile teicht men Rashi's Werter kipshutum. Then you translate Rashi's words literally. Biz, to the extent as I feel when Rashi is maitik loshen haGemara, even when Rashi quotes the language of the Gemara, is aber sein Kavone thereby, but his intent here, the Pirush HaPoshus from the Werte, the simple meaning, that means 2 years, Nasr, wie sie werden geteicht von a Ben Chomish Lemikra, as they are translated by a 5-year-old learning Chumash. Werden bederech memela, when we learn like that, so then automatically, kama v'kama pomim, many times for entfert, shaklis, shilis, many questions of shakla v'taris, questions and debates for Mefarshim that the Mefarshim deal with. And you also can learn out wondrous matters also in the wine of Torah, in the Pnimius Torah, in the esoteric part of Torah. This is Mesichas Motzoi Shabbos Kodesh Parshas Mikeitz Tovshin Lamates.